Transaction exposure refers to the risk arising from fluctuations in the foreign exchange rate between the time a transaction is entered into and the time it is settled, that is, when the payment is received. What causes transaction exposure? Transaction exposure arises for several reasons. Here are some possibilities. Sale or purchase of goods and services on credit, which is to be received or paid for in a foreign currency. For example, a company located in Bangladesh exports garments to the United Kingdom on 90-day credit to be paid for by the UK importer in pound sterling, not Bangladesh taka. Another example, a cross-border loan where the repayment of interest and principal would be in a foreign currency. For example, a Turkish firm sources a loan in US dollars from a bank in New York to purchase machinery from a firm located in the United States. That machinery will be installed and made operational in Turkey to produce goods for sale in Turkey. Hence, all its cash inflows from that investment would be in Turkish lira. However, the repayment of the loan in the future is contracted in US dollars, not in Turkish lira. Therefore, the Turkish company has a transaction exposure. Firms attempt to minimize their risk and potential losses from transaction exposure using hedging techniques, broadly classified as internal hedging and external hedging. We will look at internal hedging techniques in this session and external hedging techniques in the next session. Internal hedging techniques are largely endogenous to the firm, that is driven by circumstances and initiatives that are internal and specific to that firm. An internal hedging technique that is often pursued by several firms is invoicing in home currency, thereby transferring the foreign exchange risk to the buyer or the importer. However, this technique is not always feasible for a variety of reasons. One, if the domestic currency of the exporter, that is the seller, is very volatile vis-a-vis its trading partner countries, this could be due to factors such as high domestic inflation in the exporter's country and therefore interest rates in that country being very high. As a result, the country's currency is unlikely to be accepted as the invoicing currency for international trade. Two, for the same reason, trade between developed countries and emerging countries is almost always invoiced in the developed country's currency. As a net result, emerging countries always end up bearing most of the transaction exposure and the consequent foreign exchange risk in international trade. Another feasible internal hedging technique is netting and offsetting, whereby receivables and payables in a currency are matched by the firm. Hence, foreign exchange realized would be the net amount, and therefore the transaction exposure and the risk thereof would also be on the net amount. For example, if a firm has exported goods worth US dollars 100,000 and is also importing goods worth US dollar 85,000, the net transaction exposure is only US dollar 15,000, not 185,000. Another effective internal hedging technique is shifting timing by leading or lagging foreign currency payables and receivables. For example, if a country's currency is weakening, effecting the payables can be expedited and realizing the receivables can be postponed. Vice versa, if the currency is strengthening. Let's look at an example. Let's say a firm in India has receivables based on exports of US dollars 10,000 and payables on account of imports also of 10,000 US dollars. Both are due 1 month hence. If the spot rate is quoting at USD INR 63 and the 1 month forward rate is quoting at 64.50, the firm will do well to honor its payables, which is due 1 month hence, do it right away, so that the cash outflow is only 63 into 10,000, which is 630,000. But realize its receivables when it is due a month later, because it would have a cash flow of 64.50 into 10,000, which is 645,000. By right timing, this firm has made a net gain of 15,000. The actual gain would be lower if we consider the opportunity cost of interest on the 630,000 for 1 month. That brings us to the end of our discussion on internal hedging techniques to manage transaction exposure. In the next session, we will look at external hedging techniques.